our dogs retain their animal instincts in other words, their keen skills of observation are still intact relative to ours, right? And yet we can step back into that. Some of the important ways that we animals, us and our dogs, communicate are through, our senses, what our dogs see, hear, smell. Um, we can be particularly interested in what our dogs see and hear because we do want our dogs to keep us in their sights. And I talked about that in, I think it was episode 101, perhaps, when I was talking about playing the hide and seek game. And we want our dogs to keep us in their sights. And we can also use sounds to have a specific effect, especially while we are in the process of learning how to be partners with our dogs, right? And so, for example, high pitched, repetitive sounds inspire action. Slow, low, soothing sounds are more calming. A key point to remember is that human English is not a native language to our dog, right? And so the verbal cues, if we use them, should be taught last, and they should be taught as a verb. And you hear me talk about that. I mean, that's when we move into training specific cued behaviors. We always want to teach that cue as a verb, and that's beyond the scope of today's podcast, but just throwing that in there as an aside. Okay. Movement. Dogs are very, very attentive to movement. And so we could use that in our interactions, when needed, as needed, especially just to be aware. For example, moving away from a dog quickly grabs their attention because their dogs are very focused on movement, right? And when we move away from our dog, that can not only capture their attention, but it can cause them to move toward us. We want to pay particular attention to the emotions that our dogs are expressing. And you can gather that information from the way they use their eyes and their mouth and their ears, their posture, their tongue, their tail carriage, the way they move, right? And so our dogs are communicating with that continually, as are we. I think they say that like 80%, at least 80% of communication between humans happens on a nonverbal level. So even though we think we're like masters at language, and of course we are, the nonverbal stuff, like all the things, like the non words, human words that we use, 80% of the way we communicate is through non-words, non-speaking words.